Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card, and I'm really excited to say that this is one of the last in the installments. Not that I'm looking forward to it finishing, but because we're sort of like getting to the sort of like the home stretch for the series that Reena, the wonderful Reena from Gold Key Guidance, and I are doing around the pairing of the Major Arcana. And we've got a pretty heavy-hitting one this time around, I have to say. Possibly pairing up two of the most feared, potentially, cards, though the Wheel of Fortune is one of them, and people, depending upon whether it's upright or reversed, can often either think this is welcome or not so welcome. But the Wheel and the Tower are two that do presage very strong energies that are, at least to some degree, not generated by us or a bit out of our control or a bit inevitable. And as such, that always kind of makes us all in our self-determined sort of hopes in life feel a little bit nervous. But then again, change is extremely positive. The cycles of fate mean that sometimes we're on the rise and sometimes we're on the decline, but we will rise again, a sort of phoenix type energy, which I think is very much embodied in the Wheel. And Reena will have a look at for you, like how you best use that energy and understand it and work with your own energy to get the best outcomes out of the cycles of time and the cycles of growth and decline. I'm looking at the Tower, and the Tower probably is one of the most feared cards in the deck, but I see the Tower as an essential card, and I see it as a really positive one, and people on this channel will be used to me saying that because I really do. It is a card that sweeps away that which is no longer working for you, and it sometimes is very internal within us, and sometimes it's very external. And sometimes we move very easily with that. That's probably where it works best for us, when we kind of recognize it's time for something to kind of take all before it. Sometimes we resist, and it is sometimes when we resist that it's particularly tricky. But having said that, resistance is also sometimes a strengthening thing. When you build a muscle, you build the muscle by pushing it a little bit past its endurance. It effectively gets injured and then it builds. When an oyster creates a pearl, they do it out of being irritated by grit. So resistance is not always a problem either. So what I'm trying to do here is look at both internally and externally driven change and renewal and all of those sort of energies, and how you can use those energies best. So that's the task I have here with the Tower. And to make it as positive as possible, but to not sugarcoat the fact that it can be a challenging card and a challenging energy. But that's where we're coming from with this. So, as with many of the picker cards that I've done in this series, I'm using 3 different tarot decks. So it may be a tarot deck that draws you to a pile, and of course you can go to more than one if you want. What I've done here is I've taken the Tower card to represent that energy for that deck. I've also chosen 3 decks which I find particularly powerful in all the sort of energies that you might equate with the Tower. So there's a method behind my madness here, everybody. So for pile number 1, we have the Nous or Nous Tarot, and there's the Tower card for that deck. For pile number 2, we have the Lilith and the Machine Tarot with its Tower card. And for pile number 3, we've got the Tower card from True Black. So whatever one calls to you, obviously the timestamps are in the description box below, and you can go there. And if you feel more than one, of course, go to more than one. But when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, I will see you there in your reading. Welcome, pile 1, to your reading. So you came to the reading with the Nous or Nous Tarot. And I'll have a talk about what I think that image is saying. But just to explain this sort of setting for you, the thesis of what I'm looking at here is that we have both internal Tower moments and we have external Tower moments. So this is looking at internal, this is looking at external. So what I mean by this in internal is this is where there are changes within us that it is time to accept, embrace, go with, or as I say, resist, to kind of build our strength and then go through whatever change comes as a result of that, whatever evolves out of that. So this is very internal, and this is external. So this is the area where outside forces are kind of pushing the change, or where you would be likely to be responding to outside forces. And this, as I say, is internal. This card is meant to give a kind of a connection between the two. And the Tower card here is meant to give me a sense of how this energy is operating, the choice that you've done given the sort of energy of this card. This is the challenging and this is the welcome, as I say. So what I feel when I look at this card, like I'm always struck by feeling that looks like a face. That tower looks like a face, that looks like a nose. Now, it just might be me. You might be thinking, what are you talking about, Helen? But it looks like a face to me. It looks like there is something very human in this tower energy, and it's looking out, it's looking in a different direction. And if you see down here, you have a person looking up at it, and they're looking at the tower and the tower is looking away. I feel like, and it's looking towards what looks like the branches of a tree. So I feel that this energy is a traveler who is already looking at something that is done, and there is a new direction to go in. It feels to me like the tower energy here is about recognizing when you've reached a point in your journey, in whatever aspect it comes up with, where it's already receding into the past so that you can work out what you next need to do. That the focus is in, because it's looking backwards, but it's also a different direction. So I just feel that there is a sense here that the tower energy for you is where you realize something is no longer on your path. So that could be a job, it could be a relationship, it could be anything. But there is a sense that it's very human. It's got to do with relationship and connection, and where someone is going in the same direction, or people are going in the same direction as you, or where you're already sort of seeing them looking away. So there's a very human aspect to that, which is very interesting when we see Sun in Cancer. Cancer is all about home, love. Where are you at home? I feel like this traveler is already thinking this is no longer their home. So they know that they need to move somewhere else. So whether this literally plays out in when and how you feel in home, in relationships, literally at home, in work, or whatever it is, or whether it's more that you are seeking your home. And each time a tower moment comes up, it's where you've realised something is no longer going to provide that for you. It's particularly interesting because it looked like a weary traveller, I thought. And then when we're looking at how this is a challenge when the external world comes, we get the weary. It talks about drained, heartache, fulfillment. I feel that this is a group that do struggle in a way to find their home, their people. This doesn't mean that you won't. So don't take this as a prediction. This is about what the journey or the search is and where the tower moments come. I feel like you would be very different to maybe your home family, that your birth family, or maybe right at the moment you feel very different, like a fish out of water or a stranger in a strange land where you are. And so the focus of this and everything that you kind of use the tower energy to clear out is about replenishing an energy for the search for the home. Because here when we look at the external, where we look at the weary, the welcome change is floating. So I'm using the water alchemy deck for this, to the emotional clearing away. If you think of the tower as almost like a tsunami, this is the emotional clearing away. So I feel that when you feel no longer connected to something that represents home to you in whatever aspect this is, and there is a weariness in realizing it is time to move on, the way that this is made welcome is to see this as a liberation rather than as a resignation. So you can try to hold on. You can try, this person can try to go up and see if they can feel at home there. But I think that the answer is that they are meant to sort of float above it and be kind of in the air to find either where the direction is looking. It may even be for some of you something in the past, reclaiming something in the past is the way that you float. But this is meant, you are meant to sort of see this as a liberation, as I say, as opposed to resignation. That's the best way for you to use it and to focus on how this brings you closer to home. Internally then, and I went to that first because the weariness really made me feel that energy, but internally, if this is being triggered by not feeling welcome, not feeling at home, not feeling at one, feeling like the journey is endless to try and find this, then the internal is probably to some degree for you, pile 1, the answer. When we look at the struggle that can occur with the Tower energy internally, we have the surrender, avoidance, apathy, submission. So I do feel that there's a kind of a connection here that if you don't want to continue the journey and you resist this energy, then it saps your energy and brings heartache, and you go into a kind of numb avoidance. But if you accept this as I say, a liberation, then what happens is all this emotional energy, all this water that this character is kind of submerged under, evaporates. So it takes away the unnecessary emotion about it now. And if it evaporates, it rises. So I think that there's a very strong sense here, and as I say, particularly since this figure is so small here and yet there's such a vast energy and area that they can go into, that something in your search for what is at home to you is in fact the way that you can find a liberation, evaporate emotional energies, connections and so forth that aren't right for you and rise. So I do feel for you the Tower energy operates that way, or is operating that way at the moment. And it is a very positive thing, but you need to be prepared not, I think this is where resistance will not work for you, because what it's doing is it's entrapping you, whereas going with the flow lets it work for you. This is not so much an energy where resistance is going to create the pearl, I don't think. It's more an energy where it saps you, whereas this frees you, it helps you to rise and focus on your home. So it's almost like a surfeit, actually, a too much emotion is weighing you down. Letting that evaporate and coming up to the surface and sort of then being prepared to move forward helps you find your home and helps you get that into balance. So Tower moments for you will be emotional. They'll be about where you belong and who you belong with, but they're meant to liberate you to bring you to this point. So let's have a look with the tarot itself. So we're going to ask, where can you welcome major change now? We'll then look also, where do you most resist it? We'll then have a look at how to navigate and recognize each. And then we're going to get a little bit of an input from the wheel. Where are the cycles of fate key to this, so that it's a bit of a connection back to Reena's reading. So firstly, where can you best welcome major change? 4 of Wands reversed. 5 of Pentacles reversed, 8 of Wands reversed, 6 of Cups reversed. Oh, wow, this is very clear. Queen of Wands. Okay, this is owning who you are. This is a journey to who you are, but it is via finding the right connections, because what this is saying is understanding where the connections are not right. There is a wish for connection here with the 5 of Pentacles. And Spirit is saying there's nothing wrong with that, because in fact, the wish for the true connection that is nourishing, that's not sort of like isolating, takes you to who you're meant to be in self-actualization. But it requires, where you can welcome it, understanding where you aren't, with the right people and the right family, whatever it might be. And this doesn't necessarily mean you have to completely cut out your family, unless it's something very, very challenging in it. But I think it is recognizing that just connecting to people just to have a connection is not going to help you. That there is liberation in seeing that and letting go of things from the past that no longer emotionally support you. Cancer is a very interesting card that comes there. Some of you may be strongly Cancerian. If you are, this is a particularly challenging sort of energy for the tower for you, because of all the signs, Cancer is probably the most home-oriented, the most family-oriented, and the most protective of that. And so that could be the case. If you have Cancer strongly in your chart, it could be that this is a particularly challenging thing for you. But equally, it's one where you could welcome it, because it is going to help you create who you are. And in turn, that brings you back to a better connection that's not based on energies that suppressed you, held you back, argued with you, didn't recognize you. So this is in finding your true people and being prepared to let go and not give up, sort of take away all the emotion out of it. This is all about liberating your creativity, your sense of self, and bringing the right people in. So it's interesting, because there's a sense here with the Wands of fire energy, creativity. And like, what is there too much of? The water. So if there's too much water energy operating at the moment, that's why you need to evaporate, you need to float above it, then of course the water is putting out the fire. So I think this is just saying get that into balance. You know, also think about your true self and what you want to actualize and your passion and so forth, rather than just all the emotion around it. So where are you resisting the Tower energy at this point in time? The Sun reversed, the Devil, the Six of Pentacles reversed, the Four of Cups reversed, the Ace of Swords reversed. Okay. So there's a lot, as I say, about emotion and connection and home and all of that kind of thing around the change that's going to work for you, as well as you know, like what your true Tower challenge is. Where you resist it is where you are not sure that your ideas are right. And this is why the whole thing about connection and home is so important for you to actualize. Because if you are in, you know, a family group, a cultural group, an organization, a friendship group, a love relationship, whatever it is, where your beliefs are not recognized, where they're not even given a space to speak, then that is stopping you from becoming all you could be. But it may be a very strong, I feel like for many of you, there's a lot of power energy operating, like in a family group or a work group or whatever this is, where there's a limitation on you and a limitation on your beliefs. And it's making it hard for you to recognize you're with equals. It's a bit of a emotional gaslighting operating here with the Four of Cups reversed, to suggest that instead of being amongst equals, you are in a system, you know, a hierarchy, and that you shouldn't get above yourself. And so there's something about that where you've been convinced of it a bit, and probably by emotional things and emotional ties, but you've been convinced of it a bit. So you'd resist the change of the Tower because it's almost, you feel safe within this, hidden within this, and that really that it's a scary thing to sort of move against it. And yet, as I say, going with that change moves you out of this. Is the kind of within yourself, the surrender. It's you're surrendering your own life path. You're letting a group think stop the way that you're thinking, because you feel, you know, with the weary, it's too much of a battle, and you don't recognize that you're an equal, at least an equal with these people. So there's a kind of a power thing operating here. And so you're most likely to resist the energy of the Tower if you feel that you don't have a lot of choice and that you're not sure of your viewpoint. So it's important to understand that you're more likely to accept changes or whatever when it's just, okay, I don't feel that I'm aligning with these people and I don't think this is working for me anymore. You can move on. But if you're in some sort of a power system or manipulative system, that's where the resistance comes. So it's worth realizing this is a little bit of like emotional overlay on you, and there's probably a lot of emotional blackmail and gaslighting going on with it. So how do you best navigate and recognize when you're in one or other of these situations so that you can work out what to do? The Hanged Man reversed, the Nine of Pentacles, Justice reversed, the Star. Okay, all right. It's a balance. So what it's saying is, firstly, you have to look at it differently. This is also why the Ace of Swords is there, where you resist it. There is a kind of a resistance in you, maybe because you feel it's going to be overwhelming to really look at this. There's a resistance to really look at it differently and to be your own person. Like, it's your journey is towards connection, love, home, all of that kind of thing, but you have to be prepared to be the lonely traveler to start with. You have to look at it differently, that the journey towards true connection and true home requires, if you are not coming from it naturally where you are, that you are on your own at first. It also requires for you to really face, and I think this is more in where you're resisting it, where something hasn't been fair. It may be really hurtful. Like for some of you, this may be that you have been treated wrongly by people that you really care about. So you've got to look at that, and you've got to stand separate to that so that you can find your North Star. Because the only way to really find your people and your home is to find those who are on a similar path to you. And there's something for you, Pile 1, where in one or more aspects of your life, you're not there, or when the tower comes up, it will somehow connect to this. The tower will be trying to work for you to get you towards your sense of independence and going in the right direction, because it's actually the only way to get there. Like, I really feel like this is like a story. As I say, it feels like this is almost looking into the past. I feel like the weary traveller gets there thinking, you know, they've done everything right, they've done everything they were told, and they should be welcome. But even at the point they're there, it's already looking away. So it's like, don't go the traditional path. Don't go the path that you're told. Go the one that is your North Star. But you have to understand something unfair has been going on. So the tower is trying to work for you to bring fairness back and to have you have a different perspective on it. So let's just get an input. We're just going to draw 2 cards from the wheel. So what Reena will be looking at is how you deal with fate and the ups and downs. And so this is the perspective of that, because sometimes we can get confused in the tower energy as well around thinking if there is something we need to walk away from, let go of, or whatever, that is a downturn of the wheel, when in fact it may be the exact opposite. It may be in fact the one thing that's going to bring the wheel to turn in your direction. So let's just see what the wheel wants to say as a bit of a teaser to seeing Reena's reading if you haven't seen it yet, or as a bit of a touch point if you have. So the wheel is saying 3 of Pentacles reversed, Death reversed. The wheel is saying, yeah, all of this is about the fact that when you are avoiding a choice that is the most prevalent thing where it's not working for you materially. It's not getting what you want. So the way to recognize this and the way to make the wheel work for you is to recognize your own resistance, that path of resistance. Why is that happening? Because that will be already telling you that if you want to have a foundation in your fortune, you can't delay a decision. So it's connected in that way. So that's very powerful. And as I say, it's positive, but it is a little bit painful, I have to say. I understand if that feels a little bit daunting. So one of the things I wanted to do, because the tower energy is daunting, is bring you a very strong divine feminine and a divine masculine energy for you to call upon when you're dealing with tower moments. Even if they're ones that you are kind of welcoming, it's still very tumultuous in its own way. So from the divine feminine, we have Sekhmet, reduction. Sekhmet is incredibly powerful, an incredibly powerful Egyptian goddess, and she is fierce. So there's a fierceness here, but it's also a reduction of, I think, the amount of emotion associated with this. I feel that many of you've got incredibly beautiful hearts and you really are looking for home and you want to protect and care for everybody. But what that's done is it's made you a little bit open to too much emotion and too many manipulations by emotion. So Sekhmet is coming here to give you the fierceness to cut through that and get to the core of what you want. And then from the perspective of the divine masculine, Zeus. Wow. Yeah, you got some heavy hitters, all right. Leadership. It's your own journey. And to give you power back, because I do feel the people that have come here in one form or another, the tower is here to serve to break away illegitimate power, and injustice around you. That will help you find your heart, your home, all of those things. But there's something unfair, and that is what the tower is trying to deal with. And as I say, this could be a motif across your life, and you may end up going from having this journey yourself and then helping other people in that journey to free people from injustice and help other people in this process. Or it may be just very much of this moment and you were meant to hear it of this moment. But either way, there's a lot of energy here to give you the power and the strength to do this. I think for most of you, the real key thing is where you're resisting it. And you're resisting it, I think, because you've almost been indoctrinated in something that made you feel lesser than you actually are. So let's have a look at the journey from the kind of shadow energy to the light that the tower at its best brings for you. So a shadow energy for you at the moment. 2 little witches, magical space, clearing time. Okay, clearing time, reduction. Okay, so this is about literally like the concept of clearing out a cluttered home, a cluttered lifestyle, a cluttered emotional repertoire, whatever it is. This is meant to help you clear things out. So again, this is about clearing it out, evaporating energy, letting you be weightless enough to float, not to be weighed down. So for some of you, there might be a very literal thing here, again, because we have the home of look around you. Is there clutter? There might be a spring clean, might actually trigger a very positive way of bringing this energy in, just on a very practical level. But otherwise, this is about decluttering your emotional, your spiritual, your material life. So that then leads to the energy on a white light level of the Archon Barbello. This is showing complete balance. It's actually on a kind of metaphysical and spiritual level, almost the androgyne. There's sort of balancing the divine masculine and feminine. So it's a very strong sense that these two energies combine in you for the best outcome when you move into the light. She also clears out injustices. So there's something here. So I just feel like if you are feeling a tower moment and you're feeling like everything is, everything that you thought was your home, everything that you felt was sure or whatever is starting to crumble, it is because there was something inherently not of you there, not fair to you of you there. And this is to free you. This is to bring things into balance and to bring you that strength to do this. But it's like all sorts of other people's imprinting, I think. Whether it was deliberately done to hurt and control you, or whether it was just the nature of their wants and needs above yours, this is meant to clear that out and bring justice for you. So don't resist it. It is actually going to help you. Even if you feel like, oh, I'm going to be alone, you won't be alone for long. This is what's necessary to bring you into your own power, pile one. So it's very, very strong energy. So let's get you some astrology energy as well too. So what I wanted to do was I'm just going to look at planets that connect. I'm not going to look at how they connect because I'm going to presume that depending upon whether we're looking at welcome change, whether we're looking at resisted change, or whether we're looking at incremental change, because when the tower is reversed, I read that as incremental change where you can take control in more ways. Any of these change processes might work for you. So I just want to see what energy could be around it. So firstly, for the welcome change. So when you're sort of getting above the emotional energy and you're seeing this as liberating, planetary energies that are working for you are Saturn and Chiron. Yeah, it's clearing out the old patterns, the old edifices that can't exist. It's healing it. This is a healing thing. It may feel with Saturn like it's severe and stern in some way, but if you welcome this, it's a healing and it's a long-term healing. And for some of you, it may be the healing even on ancestral lines. That you doing this, you walking away, you finding yourself is just as healing to your family. If you have a sense like your family or this group or whatever that you feel bad if you leave them, it may be the healing that they need as well. But this is about restructuring your life to be healed. So if we then look at the resisted change, so when you're resisting, and I think this is a very key thing for you, it's where you maybe don't believe in yourself, and the tower is here to help you believe in yourself more. The astrology energy around that is Venus and Neptune. So it's very much pointing towards Sekhmet, clearing out your life, reducing that which is overloading you. It's also getting a clarity on where love is and how love should be. There's a very strong psychic connection to connect you to your soul sort of family with this, but I feel that it is about you're resisting it because it brings a clarity to love and where love is and isn't and what love is and isn't. And you need to face that because that is liberating for you. And then the incremental change. So where you can be in a situation with this with tower energy, but you're a little bit more in control of it, you can take a little bit more time. The sort of planetary energies that work for you there are Sun and Jupiter, like very, very positive. But I think what this is saying is that to get to that, because we are looking at the tower upright, to get to that energy where you start to control change at your own pace as opposed to try and either like welcome it and just let the waves come through or resist it and try and sort of work out what you can do with it. This requires that energy to be balanced so that you follow your life path and it's an expansive thing. That when you have change at the moment is a little bit painful and stern. It's a little bit sort of, I'm going to see the truth now, even if it's not what I would want to see. but it brings you to a point where your life path means that any change moving forward is expansive. So it's a promise that using this energy and recognizing it will bring you good luck, good sort of energy, and ultimately the life path that brings you what you most desire, which I think is the right connections with the right people. So just to finish off, I wanted to draw you an archangel, an energy of light and support and guidance to bring all of this way of dealing with the tower energy in your life together for you. So pile 1, we have Kerubiel, the original cherubim. This is all about illumination. This is why I'm saying I actually feel for many of you that this is a process either that you've gone through and you'll go through a few times, or you're going through right now, but ultimately you're going to be able to shine a light for others. So you find your people, you kind of get the keys to the kingdom in a way. The cherubim are, not fat little angels, as they say. They're really, really powerful, and they're about illumination. This is shining a light of truth. And there's a kind of a sense of urgency about this card too, saying do not delay. So I feel that there are some really big opportunities for you to declutter, to float above things, to evaporate emotion that's not working for you, to be clear on what you love and what you want to love, and then to heal any of the past that wasn't that, so that you can move forward, to shine a light for others and to be expansive, and to see the tower as a change energy that is extremely positive. But it could be a little bit painful, but once you've done it, the release from that pain afterwards is going to be extraordinary. So do go and see Reena's reading, because I feel you are very poised to take the learning of the tower and connect it with the learning of the wheel to help others. I do think there's a light you're meant to shine for others. So I think that what Reena will talk to you about will also help with that, so that you will know how to use that energy. Beyond that, I hope that you've enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share, of course, in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 2, to your reading. So I just want to explain this layout before sort of going into what I see here. Firstly, we do have the tower card that drew you here, and the way it's portrayed to me is part of the information. So I will talk about that. This card is meant to be how we connect the welcome and the challenging change. So the challenging change and welcome change internally to you, the challenging change and welcome change externally to you. So this is almost the pivot point on which this sits, the way to know how to manage all these sort of change energies and so forth. And in this case, we're talking about Moon in Taurus. It's the emotional connection of personal growth, of self-esteem, of what it is that you are in the world, I think, of how you value yourself in the world, because the Taurus is all about that kind of value, sort of like the position, sometimes status, but not in any kind of negative way. It's very interesting that we have the pearls and the oyster, and I talked about the energy of how sometimes the resisted is the thing that creates the pearl. So I think there's a lot of power in the resisted energy here that we will look at. There's a lot of promise in that. And I feel, even looking at this, that the accepted or the welcome energy is actually the way to deal with the resisted, interestingly enough. So I think that this group is very well aware that much as there could be an initial resistance to change that the tower brings, there's almost a process that you have, like intuitively, or even strategically, you may be very well aware of it. Now, what I do think about this, and why I think there's also something about status, is the way this card is portrayed. Because you have this almost heavenly tower, okay? This tower that's up in the storm clouds, but nevertheless also in the light. And beneath it is also a light, but it's a light with, if you can see, it's a kind of a city or something like that. So I feel as though this is change, a tower energy to bring in a almost archetypal ideal for something that's very material. Years and years ago, I remember somebody talking about what a paradigm is, it's the concept, I guess, of a conceptual thing that fulfills a certain purpose or encapsulates a certain belief structure or whatever. But it's never actually replicated in real life. It's the kind of spiritual, philosophical, logical, scientific or whatever blueprint that is to some degree replicated in life. And I feel like this card really represents that. So I think that when you are dealing with change, you have this very strong idea about how this takes one closer to an ideal. So your own self-esteem and to other things. So I think there's you really do understand that it's only through the challenge and the change that we get closer to the ideal. So I think of any of the groups in this, you are probably the most positive about the Tower, but you're also probably the one that recognises the material impact of it really strongly. And you're connecting your understanding of that somehow to how you view yourself. So then, if we look at the resistance internally, so internal changes that are going on because of the Tower, and externally, where external forces are going on. Because I think that's where, for you, the pearl is in both of these. And then, as I say, this is like how you deal with it, I think, rather than it's kind of a bit different. I intended this to be a different type of change where it's welcome, but I actually think this is the way that you make the initially resisted welcome. So here we have the bound. This is the internal. So this is ensnared, captive, burdened. You resist the change when something has kind of captured you. So I feel like this would be relationships. It could be a philosophy. It could even be the paradigm itself, and the paradigm needs to shift. But there is a kind of internal resistance that comes from being almost committed to something, to the point that it has tied you up. And I feel with the red energy here, it could be about passion, relationships. It could also be about creativity, what you're trying to create and how that's connected to your self-esteem. But in understanding the resistance, it heightens that. It heightens the passion, or it heightens the creativity, or whatever it is, by letting the change occur internally. And it's interesting that, to me, the way almost of dealing with it is ice. It's freezing out, with all this warmth coming in, freezing out that which no longer works for you. So it's almost like literally when you have a change internally that you know is necessary, even if you feel like you're shifting commitments or something like that, to warm up your energy, to move forward with fiery creativity, you literally put that which is no longer working on ice. Like, there's a choice here. I think you really know what you're doing. And it's not necessarily easy. You're kind of resisting it at first because you have kind of had a commitment to something, an ideal, a paradigm, but you know the shift has to occur. There's a new paradigm coming through. So you put on ice anything within yourself and your self-development that is not working. What I like about that too is you haven't lost it, because you kind of recognize this might be a time. There may be a time where you take it off ice, so to speak, and you reconsider it. But you are able to internally almost switch off what you need to switch off to not ensnare yourself. Over here, using, again, where it's resisting, when at first, something external happens, we have the disintegration, fragmentation, breakdown, strength. So again, strength comes from this. I think this will often happen around things that are material to you. So I think it's likely to happen when a job is no longer working, when financial issues are at play, where something that is material of value and that kind of thing occurs. Then you may resist what appears to be, a downturn in fortune. And it'll be really important for you, of all the groups, to go and see Reena's reading if you haven't already, because I do think there's something about how you use the Wheel of Fortune. I think you understand that, but it's natural at first to resist it, to go, no, I'm just about to have my group of pearls. Why would I want to change now? But if you're going to have more, you have to allow that change, something to disintegrate that allows the new energy to come in, and that crystallizes. It makes more strong what the change needs to be. And I think it's really interesting about pearls and crystals here. So out of this one, you are putting aside, when it's an internal change with the Tower, you're putting aside aspects that are no longer serving you, putting it on ice. And as I say, you may well come back or not. Out of the change that's external, you create something new. You crystallize something new, having gone through the fragmentation. And you think about it, even crystals feel fragmented, but they become a a powerful, new, beautiful thing in and of themselves. So the change and the disintegration materially helps crystallize the paradigm, the real paradigm. And internally, you're able to move with a change and focus on that which is passionate and true to you, even if it's letting go of other things, putting it on ice to allow this process to occur. So I do think you're very well aligned with dealing with Tower energy, whether or not you find it a scary card. I think many of you probably don't. So let's have a look then with a little bit of tarot. We're going to have a look at where you can welcome major change, where you might resist it, and then we're going to look at how to navigate and recognise each of those states. And then we're going to get a little bit of input from the Wheel of Fortune about how the cycles of fortune impact all of this. So firstly, where you welcome this. And the interesting thing is, for you, this is going to be more how you process it, I think. I mean, when I sort of worked out the structure for this, I didn't expect to see this, but this is very interesting. So I think you initially don't welcome it, but very quickly you move into making it work for you. So you're not looking for change's sake. That's what I'd actually say. It's not like you're going, oh, let's change now, isn't this fun? It's like, how do I manage the change so that something really good comes out of it? So I think that's more what we're going to see around this first part of the tarot. Then we're going to have a look at the resistance, and in that I think we're going to see how do you create the crystal, the new pearl, all of that kind of thing. So for you, a little bit more about the energy of welcoming and strategically dealing with change. So we've got the Four of Coins reversed, the Five of Cups, the Ten of Wands reversed, the Knight of Swords. Oh, yeah, okay. The Four of Swords reversed. Okay, so you know when you welcome change, when you are moving into strategy, you've already accepted that something was no longer the foundation and that you're not going to be able to build it more. Like if this was literally like a tower in your mind, it'd be like you'd got to the second story and realised that the foundations weren't going to support the exact paradigm you had. You need to shift it. The foundations aren't there. So you've already gone through, this is what I'm saying, you've gone through this initial resistance to get to the acceptance, and you've let go of any of the emotional stuff associated with that. You've unburdened yourself with that. What that allows you to do is move very quickly to a new message, a new way of doing things. And I think it's very interesting that swords we see here, because, you're moving from the internalized change to externalizing it with the Four of Swords. So very quick, very strategic. You deal with change very, very strategically. You surprise people actually with how quickly you deal with change and how quickly you can unburden yourself of that which isn't working, or turn on a dime. Like you are in like a negotiation or something like that, you can just pivot because your first resistance tells you what you need to put on ice, tells you what you need to create now and change, and then you just do it. You're not frightened of doing it. You really feel like a very mercurial, quick energy that can do it. So I think you surprise people. I think you're a bit of a natural change agent. I think you're a bit of a iconoclast, a bit of a provocateur, but you do it in a way that creates something beautiful. So let's see what's happening in the resistance energy, which almost precedes this sort of like pivot energy that I'm saying with how you deal with the tower. You know, what's going on when the first resistance comes up? Queen of Wands, Six of Swords, Ace of Swords reversed, Six of Cups, Temperance. Okay, all right. So you're like the Queen of Wands, this fiery energy. You know, it doesn't matter what your gender is or you identify with. I'm just talking about self-actualize. I think what happens is that because you're clever and you're able to deal with this, at any given time you probably feel, I'm self-actualized, I know who I am. And then something comes that shifts the paradigm. And that's the first resistance, because you're going, no, I'm self-actualized. And suddenly it's like, do I know what direction I'm going in anymore? But what happens is that when you allow yourself to be in that energy and think, I'm ready to go forward, I know I've got enough, so therefore I don't need to have the navigation tools, you're allowing the new energy to come up and you're excavating what gets in the way of it. That's what you're putting on ice. And some of that may be the old things that you loved and wanted to do, as opposed to bringing that into balance for what you need to do moving forward. I was sort of talking in a reading earlier today about literary concept which is called Kill Your Darlings, which is where someone is writing a novel or something and they have a favourite character, but really for the plot arc and the narrative sort of, needs, they need to kill that person off, or at least have them no longer sort of really front and centre. And that can feel really painful to do. And it almost feels like this. It feels like what happens is that you have these sort of things that happen. And I mean, sometimes it may be that it's something external that happens that makes you realise that the edifice isn't going to last. But I think quite often it's in your sureness, you then allow yourself to look at where you don't know, and that brings this up. And then it brings almost an inevitable change to what you're doing materially. So I think more than often than not, this is self-generated. But it is about liberating that sort of thing. But it's in balance. What I really feel is that you're not ever letting something go. It's not that you're kind of walking away forever from things. It's more that you are changing your focus and your attention. So it's a balance thing. It's not I have to sort of like crash and leave everything behind in the debris. That's not what you do. As I say, it's like you kind of recognize the value of everything that's brought you to where you are, but you're now looking at what you need to do to get that in balance to move forward. So how do you do that? How do you best navigate that? Eight of Swords reversed, Death reversed, King of Wands reversed, King of Coins reversed. Okay, all right. You use your mind. You see all of this as an intellectual or strategic exercise to liberate you. And you recognise when you've hit a point where you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. Like, it's interesting. Like, Death reverse is normally, you can avoid doing a choice. But I think with this, it's where there is no choice. You have to do it. Otherwise, you have actually almost... you've created what you're trying to resist, which is being bound together. You've reached a point where you have to do this, and you put your ego on hold. And all that you've done materially, because in the end, you want the best tower, you want the best edifice, you want the best outcome materially, whatever it might be. You want the most beautiful crystal, the most beautiful pearls. And the only way you can do that is accept that to stay in not making a decision and a change is to stay bound up, and to stay bound up by the ego. So you let go of the ego, and you kind of throw caution to the wind almost, but you trust in the end that this is a liberation that will bring in something new that is better. So I think you work really, really well with the Tower energy. So then what about the Wheel of Fortune energy? We're just going to pull two cards for what the Wheel of Fortune might say about all of this. And this is a bit of a touchstone to Reena's reading. And, if you've already seen it, you might be able to kind of relate the two this way. And if you haven't, then do definitely go and see it, because I think you would work very well with the Wheel of Fortune energy as well. So the Wheel of Fortune, the Magician. This is your talent, my friends. And the Fool reversed, and you've done it many times before, and you'll do it many times going forward. You are not naive about this. You know exactly what you're doing. I don't think the Tower scares you at all, and nor should it. I mean, I don't think it should scare anybody, to be honest, but I think for you are a master at this. So one of the things I wanted to look at was the divine feminine and masculine energy around this. So for you, I was thinking this was like, to protect you, and there is a little bit of that, but I think for you, it's like a little bit more about you in relation to this. So the divine feminine energy for you around it. Valkyries, redemption. Yeah, you're a fighter. You're brave. And redemption. For some, there may be actually, when you're talking about the bound here, like I felt like commitments and so forth, it may even be for some of you that you have felt on some level in your life there was a commitment you didn't meet, and a lot of this journey is now to meet it, like a kind of a grail quest. But certainly there is a sense of going forward and fighting for what is important. And then for the divine masculine energy, Vulcan, inventiveness. Yeah, there's the strategy. There's the strategy. And the wish for perfection and the use of skill and mastery, all of that. So it's very clever mind, very much a master of all of this, very good communicator. This is why it's like it's you go into the resistance, just like, Vulcan in sort of fiery fiery sort of like forge where he's making what he does, or Valkyrie's in the battle, you go into the resistance, and out of that comes the strategy and the new. Okay, all right, so let's see your journey from shadows to light. So firstly, the kind of shadow energy that presages a tower event. The sea beacon fairy, guidance, but where will it lead you? So this is you knowing in a sense that you're going to be your own guide, but being prepared in that point to recognize you've hit particular points where the only way to move forward is to recognize that you don't have a set destination yet. You've got to actually go on the journey. And that is the shadow. That's the one bit where you might falter, where you think, am I ready? But if you recognize that you are and you have to, and that doubt is really just the ego, letting the ego go because you're more than able to do it, that then leads you to the white light energy for you, which is Shaktipat of Seahorse. So the interesting thing about this energy is about finding those with which we have a good interactive energy, where we give and where they give. It's that sort of thing of like a kind of mutually supporting ecosystem, because seahorses find that within the sort of like watery depths with other life forces. So there's something in here, I think, that says that ultimately the true light energy that comes from this is you finding and getting closer and closer to those that become part of a bigger ecosystem for you, that become something that it's a Gestalt effect, becoming more than what you are. That's the underpinning energy for this. If you're prepared to keep exploring, you come and find those connections that are really powerful for you. So that's kind of beautiful. Let's see some astrology. So what I'm doing here is that I want to look at 3 types of ways that you deal with the tower energy. First is where you welcome it. So what planets kind of work in harmony or in challenge there. Secondly, with where you don't welcome it. And thirdly, where it's incremental, because I always see the tower when it's reversed is incremental change. So it's almost the graduation point where you've kind of balanced off the welcome and unwelcome change, and you're now controlling the change. And I think you're pretty close to that already, Pole 2, but let's see what we get. So firstly, some astrology energy around where you welcome change. We have Mercury and Jupiter. Yeah, your mind, your strategy, your communication, your skills, you see it as expansive. Anywhere where you see this as expansive, even if it does put on hold or on ice certain things, it creates the crystals, it creates the wealth, it creates good things, and your mind knows it. Your mind is very clear about this. It's very mental. It's very much a paradigm. You have an ultimate ideal outcome that you're constantly redesigning. And I think this is the clue, that eventually you get closer and closer to those that also support a similar design. So let's look at the energy that operates when you're kind of in the resistance mode, which is when you first look at this, where something feels uncomfortable now, and you need to kind of re-navigate, and you've got to kind of be pushed either internally to feel freer or externally to deal with the inevitable changes that are around. We get the Moon and Mars. Yeah, this is the emotional point about what is your action going to be and what is your passion going to be now. And I find it really interesting, the moon, the water, the tides and everything, and then we've got like ice, like where you need to slow that down, where you need to not have that so that you can act and move into the fiery energy personally. But then when everything is kind of like changed enough, you create out of that, out of the moon energy, the sort of the crystal, the new creativity. So it's understanding that dynamic and understanding that there is an initial resistance because it feels emotional, but there's also a propulsion that you have to do it. So then what is the energy where you can incrementally change, use the tower's energy incrementally? Sun and Mercury, ultimately for your life path. The whole thing is this is why I sort of feel like because you do deal with change when the tower is in its full force, both internally and externally. You do it and you go with it because you can see the growth associated with it and you have the strategy. But ultimately that strategy that intellect you have, it's part of your life path. You're meant to be a change agent. You're meant to know how to evolve the new paradigm, the new energy, the new crystal, the new thing of wealth. And when you reach that point where change is like a dance that you do, change is like an artistic offering that you do, something like that, that's when it really connects with your life path. And that's where you know, when you're truly the Queen of Wands, when you're truly self-actualized, you know this is exactly who you are and what you're meant to do. Very, very positive. So last but not least, I'm just going to get you an archangel to see the energy that watches over the tower for you and how you approach it. Sandalphon, oh yeah, music, rhythm, going with the flow, the creative energy, the music of the spheres. Like this is, and it's very divinely guided and it's very material. It's like doing this in the earth, because Sandalphon is the sort of twin of Metatron, both of which were people before. They were archangels, so to speak. So there's a sense of self-evolution spiritually out of this, of getting in the rhythm and the music and the healing sort of energy, the creative energy. But this is something you're a natural at. You're a rock star at it. I always think this looks like a rock star. You're a rock star at dealing with the tower, pole 2. Hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed it. Do go and see Reena's reading. I'd be fascinated to know how that connects for you, because you're so good at the tower energy. I think the wheel would also be your friend. But beyond that, if you enjoyed the reading, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So I'm just going to explain this layout first so that it's sort of clear what we're dealing with, and then I'll talk about it. We firstly have the Tower card from the True Black Tarot, and I wanted to use the Tower card in each of these because I feel the way it's portrayed says something about how the Tower energy operates for you. I also have an astrology card here to have a look at the connection between your internal change and your external change, internal Tower energy, external Tower energy, how that comes together and what might be a focal point or a pivot point for it. Then in each of these we have when you resist the Tower energy and when you welcome the Tower energy. So what interests me in this Tower card in particular is that the Tower is actually represented as a person, and you can see the person is sort of splitting apart around about at the hips, so kind of through the solar plexus chakra down to the root chakra. So I feel like this is a Tower energy. You deal with a Tower energy where things from your personal power to your security are connected. And I think because we have the Tower energy holding this precious ball of light, that it's about what you create in the world. So I think that this is a highly creative group. I think this is a group, and there is sort of energy here. It could be creativity personally, or it could be a creativity of a family or something like that. But the Tower energy is serving to protect what you want to create, but challenge the foundations and challenge your sense of power so that you can do it. Like I think it's a positive energy. There's a lot of light around it and a lot of possibility, but it's like either you within yourself are challenging those things always to perfect the creation of whatever this is, spiritually, materially, creatively, or whether when it comes from external, it's your guides, it's the spirit energy, which is constantly making you rethink this, because there's something very precious you're meant to do. Now, the interesting thing is with Sagittarius, Sun in Sagittarius, there's something very spiritual about it and very philosophic about it. But it is asking you to go out into the new. And when you go out into the new, that's probably when those chakras are always the most vulnerable to change. Because when we are going down a well-trodden path, it's less likely that we're going to sort of feel that our personal power is at risk, or that our security, we've got all that sorted out and we're up in the upper chakras and that's all good. But when you are doing something new, that's when that could always be the unstable force, and you have to be focusing on that. Like I feel like this character is literally having to focus on that area. It's almost like in an exercise program to have your core strong. Like your core self is really important, because as I say, there's something very precious. So I feel that there's almost a destiny to this group. There's something you're meant to create. There's something you're meant to bring in. And you're going to be constantly challenged to make sure that you have the personal strength, drive, and foundations for this. And that's how the Tower operates, so that you can do something new. Now then, how does it operate internally and externally, both where you resist and where you go with it? Where you resist, we have the hidden, treachery, betrayal, dishonesty. We've got this sort of sense of a sea creature that's perhaps a little bit sort of wild and worrying. Might seem beautiful, but isn't necessarily. It's kind of an energy. It almost looks like a subterranean Medusa in a way, but with the octopus kind of hair as opposed to snake hair. So this is interesting. You will resist change if it makes you feel that you are in a treacherous position where treachery or dishonesty or whatever, you don't want to see it. And that makes sense, because one of the first things that's going to really impact us internally around our sense of self and security is if we feel we're being betrayed. Some of you, I have to say, will probably feel that and will probably be right. And it's very important to recognize that, because it's interesting when you then see this energy as something you can welcome. We've got steam, letting off steam, allowing yourself to be angry, and kind of through the power of your energy and your light, burning away, turning to steam, the emotional pull of this treachery. So I think that this group will find personal treachery, personal betrayal as a bit of a motif. But I think part of it is because you are doing something new and that threatens others. The way to deal with it is to understand that it's, people who are threatened, they're competitive, they're jealous, something like that. Just let off steam. That allows you to move forward. Because this is very much you. This is why you have to keep that energy strong. You can't rely too much on others. You can't go, oh, well, someone else is going to look after it if I'm not feeling strong enough. This is yours. This is yours. And others may want to take it from you, or others may want to get in the way of what you're doing. But you can just let off steam and move forward and keep moving forward. So I think that is the internally not letting it get to you. Just recognizing it, let off steam, move on. When it's happening externally, with the fog, we've got corruption, uncertainty, confusion. This is where external forces might be trying to get to the purity of whatever this is. And it's unclear. So I think these two things are very strongly connected. I think the internal and external almost mirror each other within how you deal with Tower energy. I think that many of you are doing something very pure in a very potentially corrupt, potentially not pure environment. So I believe that this is sort of showing that, like, the external stuff, when things don't seem clear, when you feel that something may be rotten in the state of Denmark, as the bard would put it, you're going to be right. And this is when you are going to need to change, but you may, again, not want to do it because you might not be sure, because you're in this very new area and it's always calling on you to do this on your own, and you may not want to do that. How do you welcome that change? It's two things, I think. Fluids on one level to me suggests clearing it all out, just washing it all away. But there's also a child here, a fetus. So I feel like, and that doesn't have to, it could literally be a child, but I think it's more like whatever this creative energy is. It's like you need to keep this clean and pure from an energy around you that's not. So I must say, pile 3, I think you have something very precious, something very unique, something very beautiful, and you have to protect it and you have to keep yourself strong. But in this energy, how you're dealing with it, you are not surrounded necessarily by friends all the time, and you're not in a system that is positive. So you have to face where you want to resist it so that you can clear it out and protect it. It's like it's being driven by attacks to you are really an attack to what you could create, and it's the old order in a sense, not wanting the new order, something like that. So I knew it would be powerful with True Black. So let's have a look. We're going to firstly see a little bit about where you could welcome change. So how you can blow off steam and clear and keep pure that which what you're trying to do by welcoming the change energy of the Tower. So we have the 9 of Pentacles reversed, the Queen of Cups, the 3 of Swords reversed, Temperance. If you heard my stomach rumbling, I'm sorry, it's getting close to lunch. The 8 of Wands. Okay. So at its best, if the core issue here around change for you is when you are around people, situations, environments that are not pure and are not on your side and are corrupt or are treacherous, the change energy to blow off steam and to protect this is to bring in the right people where you know there's an emotional connection. So the water energy is very powerful here for you. It's cleaning up stuff, it's blowing away that which is not necessary, and it's drawing in those that are going to be, like you, protective of this energy. And it's allowing the pain of whatever that shift is to dissipate. It's not carrying bitterness. Like, it's very, very important. If you through external or internal energies where you feel betrayed or in a corrupt environment continually carry the pain, it will actually get in the way of you keeping a pure energy. That's why you need to let off steam and keep everything pure. Keeps it in balance, keeps it free. It's like there's something very precious, as I say, that you're meant to create, bring in or do. And there are many forces that want to actually stop you doing that want to imprison it. So the tower energy is operating to let you see that so that you can free it. So understanding it in that way is really helpful. But how does where you resist the change, how does that play into this? We have judgment reversed. The King of Swords reversed. The Eight of Cups reversed. The Three of Cups. The Knight of Swords. Okay. So one of the things that you have to watch in this environment is how judgment operates. Now, the judgment here could also be resisting the call, but I don't think that's what's going on here. I don't think that when you're resisting it, you're resisting the call at all. I think you're very in line with that. So I feel like the judgments of others that are unfair get you caught in an emotional bind. This is where you're resisting. It's where you're not clear, where people are telling you you're wrong, or you know that you're not doing what you're supposed to do, or whatever. There's a sort of a sense of, if you let other people judge the beauty of what you're doing, it gets in the way of you having that strength, that core strength. So it's accepting. If you are resisting change, you are accepting an illegitimate judgment of yourself because you don't want the emotional fallout and pain of accepting that those who are judging are not on your side. So this is saying liberation, doing the different thing, doing what they don't expect is the way to have celebration. But if you accept their way of looking at it, then this is what happens. It just weakens anything you can do, and it makes it harder and harder to protect that which is precious. So how do you navigate and reconcile these two, where you're kind of working well with the tower energy and when you're kind of feeling the resistance because of the judgments of others, the pain that's associated with coming out of the fog and seeing what you're really dealing with? Nine of Cups, Ace of Swords, Justice reversed, Ace of Wands reversed. Okay, it's recognizing the difference. It's all you really have to do. There is one side that is operating to kind of bury your capacity for the precious thing to come into being, and it's not just. So recognizing that that's the case, that the good opinion of these people, whatever glittering prizes they might be offering, whatever it is not worthy because it's not just, and it's not going to allow you to create. Recognizing that your individual thing here, your way of believing things, your beliefs, rather than those that are being that kind of like put upon you, is the way to happiness. That you can be happy by moving away from the unjust stuff, even if it feels like it's a painful thing to do. So given that this is a lot about dealing with, you know, as I say, maybe people that are not to be trusted, and I'm sorry, this is a pretty heavy thing, but you do have a very precious, beautiful thing in you that is meant to be protected here. But given that, let's maybe see what the Wheel of Fortune wants to say. So this is to connect to Reena's reading, which you may have come from already or that you may be yet to go to, but it's just kind of how the cycles of fortune interact with this energy for you, and in you protecting your strength and the beauty of the thing that you're here to bring into being in whatever way it is. Pile 3. We have the King of Cups, and the Two of Cups reversed. It's all about the choices of relationship. Where is the emotional clarity, the emotional healing, the emotional depth, the emotional maturity, as opposed to where there is a connection that was never going to be? For some of you, this could be, I have to say, that there is a relationship that is not, a love relationship that is not good for you. And it will always stop, always cut you down in your strength, always stop the beauty of what you could be. And if you recognize that and let it go, because it is not fortunate to be there, you can bring in what is fortunate. Beyond that, as I say, this could be something creative, it could be something in a career, it could be anything where there's almost a corrupt environment. But either way, it's a very strong thing about understanding that resistance keeps you held in a false paradigm and a false thing that ensnares you and takes away your strength. Recognizing it, letting off steam and protecting what is precious brings you towards the happiness. So there's a very clear message here. But it's not easy to do that. So I want to get you a divine feminine and a divine masculine god or goddess or powerful being to sort of help you in dealing with this. So firstly, the divine feminine. Gaia, creation. You are a creator. Wow, you're really important. What you're doing is really important for the earth. It's probably why there's this sense of corruption, because the kind of the powers of destruction and dissolution and the negative don't want the beauty of the creation of Gaia. So there's something very, very powerful in what you're creating. So knowing that, owning that is really important. What you have is far too precious to let other people get in the way. And the divine masculine energy for you. Thor, action. Yeah, the thunderstorm. Using the power of Thor is kind of like the power of the tower, using it for action, for strength, for moving forward, and to clear everything away with the thunderstorm. Like see the tower as an incredibly powerful and positive force for you, to clear away the energy, to take away the anger, to get rid of the disappointment, and so that you can protect whatever this precious thing is. So let's see the journey from shadow to light that the tower represents for you. So the shadow, grumpy red fairy, be your true self. Yeah, get grumpy. Let off steam. You guys you have something so beautiful and so precious, and you are so strong. It's why this is happening. Just get grumpy as hell. Screw them, basically. Just, you really do have something so precious, and you've got every right to have the you-know-whats about it, because the reality is you've got bigger fish to fry than these people. So let's see what white light energy you move towards if you allow yourself to do this. Oh, wow. Sovereign Queen Maeve. Yeah, your own sovereignty, your own queendom. Sovereign Queen Maeve is the queen of the fairies. And she is all about looking after that, which is precious. In her case, it's her community, her people. There's something big for you guys. This is why the tower is so personal, why it's attacking your power, because you have a power to do this and an ultimate sovereignty that most people don't have. But, as I often say, to those that much is given, much is expected. So that's kind of the dynamic we're seeing here. That's really powerful. So what I want to do with astrology is I want to have a look at some planets that operate in three phases. One is when you welcome the change, one is when you resist the change, and then one is where you have incremental change. Because when the tower is reversed, I feel like it gives that opportunity. So I almost think for all these readings, the journey is towards the tower being reversed so that you're more in control of it. But let's see first the sort of astrological energy around where you welcome change. Where you get a bit grumpy and you look after the creation. The energy is Sun and Mercury, yes, speaking your truth, speaking your life path, your genius, your creativity, not any of this rubbish from anybody else. Your mind is very strong. You're able to articulate things very, very well. So then where you resist it, so where you need to think about that as to whether it's holding you hostage, the energy around that is Venus and Pluto. Yeah, this is the depths of the emotion around it. You need to be able to go into the shadow, and you need to be able to see the shadow in those that maybe you loved. Like, seriously. There are some, whether it's romantic or whatever, really being able to see that is important. And it's a bit of a painful thing to do, but it is important for you, again, to protect the precious thing here. So then the energy, if you get to the point of incremental change with the Tower. Saturn and Neptune. Okay. Being able to balance both the need for structure when it's necessary and the need for dreams and ideals when it's necessary. Bringing ideals into being. Having a structure and a proper, a kind of sense, not of corruption and everything, but the things that are really tried and true and right with the dream. It's like getting that into balance. And Saturn to me here is like the structure of the spine, the core, bringing that in alignment with your ideals. That's the ideal thing for you to do. So last but not least, pile 3, I just want to bring you an archangel to watch over your Tower energy. Oh, Raphael, beautiful again, healing. Healing into the heart. There is a healing of the heart necessary here. I think it's quite disappointing for you, the sort of attacks you might get on occasion, because you don't deserve them, but it comes from those that are not worthy of your love. But I think there's a deep healing here, and I think you'd bring a healing. There's something in what you're doing, like healing the earth, healing whatever is precious. There's a very, very protective energy here, very protective. And I think it kind of connects, the caduceus, which Raphael has here, connects to Mercury as well too. There's something in the message that you bring that will be very healing. And again, a corrupt energy or a treacherous energy doesn't want healing. It loses its power that way. But if you move forward with that, then you have everything that you need to do this. So I hope that resonates for you, pile 3. I hope it was helpful. It's a tricky energy, but it's a very important one. Do go and see Reena's reading, because I think how you use the Wheel of Fortune and understand those cycles will also be very helpful. Because if you are around an energy that's trying to manipulate you in one form or another, you need to be able to understand, because they may try to manipulate you around what appears to be the wheel, turning down. Like we all have times where things are not as growthful and not as positive. So if you understand those cycles for yourself, I think you'll be in a stronger position to protect yourself and to keep your core strength really on point. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.